Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillahi wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi. Today's question is, can I read the Quran without being in a state of wudu? And can I touch the Mus'haf, the Quran, without being in a state of wudu? These are two very common questions, which inshallah ta'ala we're going to try to explain today. So, as for the Mus'haf, which is the Quran, as we say in English, the Arabic Quran, then this is called Mus'haf. As for the translation, this is not called Mus'haf, this is a book of translation. So as for the Mus'haf, there are two opinions among the scholars. You have the Zahiriyya, Ibn Hazm, Dawood al-Zahiri, and some present-day scholars like Shaykh Albani and Shaykh Muqbil, rahimahullah al-Jami', who says that you can touch the Quran, the Mus'haf, without wudu. And then you have the opinion of the majority of the scholars from the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, the Madhahib al-Arba, the four madhabs, and the majority of the scholars who lives today. So they say no, it is haram to touch the Mus'haf without being in a state of wudu. And let us see some of the proofs that they use. The Prophet ﷺ wrote a letter to Amr ibn Hazm in which he wrote that أَنْ لَا يَمَسَّ الْقُرْآنِ إِلَّا طَاهِرٌ. No one should touch the Quran except the one who is pure. And this hadith was classified as authentic according to Ad-Darimi, Al-Hakim, Shaykh Albani, and Ibn Abdul Barr even mentioned that this hadith تَلَقَّتْهُ الْعُلَمَاء بِالْقَبُولِ وَالْعَمَلِ. This is a hadith which has been accepted by the scholars and they all act upon it. So he mentions ijma' when it comes to this hadith. So the Prophet ﷺ here said that no one should touch the Quran except the one who is tahir, meaning pure. And this hadith also was what the Sahaba acted upon, as Shaykh al-Islam and Ibn Taymiyyah says that what strengthened this opinion that you can't touch the Quran without wudu is that none from the Sahaba or the Tabi'een is known to have touched the Quran without wudu. And this was mentioned by, as I said, Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qudama. Ishaq al-Maruzi once asked Imam Ahmad if I can read the Quran without wudu. So he said, yes, as long as you don't read it from the Mus'haf, meaning that you read it from your memory. If he wishes to read it from the Mus'haf, he should make wudu. This was the statement of Imam Ahmad. Ishaq ibn Rahoya, who was a scholar living at the time of Imam Ahmad, said, as Sahih reported, that no one should touch the Quran except the one who is tahir, meaning pure. And this is the opinion of the Sahaba and the Tabi'een. So here you find Ishaq ibn Rahoya, rahimahullah, quoting like an ijma', consensus among the Sahaba and the Tabi'een that you shouldn't touch the Quran except in a state of wudu. And you also have a Sahih narration where Salman al-Farisi radiyallahu anhu was asked about an ayah in the Quran and he wasn't in a state of wudu. So he said, you can ask me and I will verbally answer you, but I will not touch the Quran. I will not touch the Mus'haf because لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. Only the pure one should touch it. And he quoted the ayah from Surah Al-Waqi'ah, that only the pure one should touch it. And this athar was narrated by Ibn Abdul Razak in his Musannaf. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah also said that this opinion, regulation, that you can't touch the Quran except in a state of wudu, has been narrated from the Sahaba, Tabi'un, without any disagreement, which proves that this opinion was the well-known opinion among them. And Ibn Abdul Barr said that the fuqaha, meaning the scholars from all countries whose fatwa is acted upon, all ajma'a, agreed that no one should touch the Mus'haf except in a state of tahara. And you should only touch the Quran in a state of wudhu. So here you find Ibn Abdul Barr, who is very knowledgeable about the ijma' and the difference of opinion among the scholars, quoting that all the scholars from all countries whose fatwa is acted upon agree that you can't touch the Quran except in a state of wudu. And you also have Ibn Qudama quoting ijma' consensus in this matter. So you have Ibn Qudama, Ibn Abdul Barr, Ibn Taymiyyah, and others quoting ijma' in this matter. Now, so I hope it's clear that one shouldn't touch the Mus'haf without being in a state of wudu. As for reading the Quran from your memory, your heart, without wudu, then this is something which is allowed. This is another question. And let me quote some scholars. Ibn Abdul Barr, who I previously mentioned, he said that as for reciting the Quran without touching it, then it is allowed, and we do not know of any difference of opinion in this matter. So, consensus, you can read the Quran from your memory, no problem. Imam al-Baghawi, the famous Mufassir who wrote Tafsir al-Baghawi, said regarding reciting the Quran from the memory, the ulama unanimously all agreed that it is allowed. And also Imam al-Nawawi quotes al-Ijma' saying that Muslims are all unified regarding the permissibility of reciting the Quran for the muhdith, meaning the person who is not in a state of wudu. And we also find that the Prophet ﷺ, as Aisha quoted, كان يذكر الله على كل أحيانه. He used to remember Allah in all of his conditions, all times in all of his conditions. So there is no problem reciting the Quran from your memory. The third question is about touching books of translations which contain Quran and books of tafsir which also has Quran in them. Then the scholars also mention ijma' and consensus that it is allowed. There is no harm in reading and touching books of tafsir and translations without being in a state of wudu. And also we have a question related to this time. Can you read the Quran from your cell phone or your pad? Yes, you can, because this is not a Mus'haf. Even if the application has all of the Quran in it, it's no problem reading the Quran from your application, your cell phone. Alhamdulillah.